You gotta admit, this world is a crazy beautiful place. But part of you also realizes there's something way more beautiful inside of you that's beyond this world. Something called your beingness. But for some reason, you've been procrastinating on going free. I know, I've done it too. This is a big mistake, because part of you knows there's nothing better than the sweet, sweet taste of freedom, that you're happiest when your mind is quiet, just being in the moment, being present, being your beingness. But the ego doesn't like that. The ego doesn't want you going free. Why do you want to listen to that ego? Why do you want to listen to something that tells you to figure everything out? Why do you want an ego that tells you to be afraid? What are you afraid of? What's wrong with going free? What's wrong with having everything that you want and being happy all the time? All right, so let's do a little exercise together so we can get more clarity about where our happiness really comes from. Let me ask you this. What do you need from the world in order to be happy? Or in other words, what is it in the world that really makes you happy, that you find yourself holding on to? Now take whatever comes to mind. It could be someone important in your life, your significant other, your children, or it could be something simple, like an ice cream, right? So whatever that is that you need from the world to be happy, now imagine letting that go, just giving that up forever, and see if that brings up some resistance. Now measure that resistance on a scale of 0 to 10. 10 being the most resistant, like maybe your ego is really screaming right now, no, you cannot let that go. No way. Right? So that's 10 being the most resistant and 0 being the least resistant. Now just measure yourself. And wherever you are with that resistance. Now you notice that usually when you have resistance, you tend to fight with it because it's not a nice feeling. It's not a nice state to be resisting. And you want to push it away or just shove it down. So basically, when resistance occurs, you say no to it. Does saying no make the resistance go away? No. So instead, can you say yes to that resistance? Now, it only makes sense. Because it doesn't matter whether you give the thing up or not, right? And you haven't given the thing up yet, but you have the resistance. Do you really want to carry that resistance around? And does that resistance come into congruency with freedom? No, it's the opposite of it. So just say yes to that resistance and let that resistance go. Say yes to it so it can leave. And say yes to that resistance even more. And say yes to it even more. And even more. And even more. And say yes to that resistance even more. And even more. And even more. And say yes to that resistance. That's all you have to do. Just look right at it and say yes to it. And say yes to it even more. and even more. Now measure yourself again and see if you moved on that scale of 0 to 10. See if that number's a little bit lower now. And also notice if you feel a little bit lighter. Feel the difference? Now, wherever you are on that scale of 0 to 10 now, look at that number, look at that resistance, and this time say, I love you, resistance. You probably don't say that often enough, right? But right now, try it out. I love you, resistance. I love you. I really, really love you. I love you, resistance. I love you. I just love you. And I give you permission to leave, and I give you permission to stay. I love you either way. I just love you. Now measure yourself again and see if you're even lower. Now, if there's any resistance remaining, just look at it. Notice how simple this is. Just say, I love you to that resistance. I love you. I really, really love you. And notice how you feel. Lighter? And where are you now on the scale of 0 to 10? You see, the more welcoming you are and loving you are to the resistance, it just evaporates. It disappears. And it doesn't matter whether you give the thing up or not. See, the resistance doesn't help you. And now, by letting it go, see, the resistance is the ego. And now you're getting bigger than the ego. So, what else do you look to in the world to make you happy? Maybe it's beauty. Maybe it's getting out into nature. Maybe it's traveling. And you don't want to give all that up. You don't want to leave the world behind. And maybe your ego is telling you, you're going to have to give it all up. The whole world is going to disappear if you go free. You're going to disappear if you go free. How does your ego know? And wouldn't it be worth it to find out the truth? Or would you rather listen to your ego? Now, see if giving that up, whatever that is, that you really enjoy in the world, brings up some more resistance. And again, measure that resistance on a scale of 0 to 10. And could you say yes to that resistance so it can leave? And could you say yes to it even more? And could you say yes to it even more? And even more. And even more. And say yes to that resistance even more. And even more. And even more. Now measure yourself again. See where you are now. Wherever you are, any resistance that's remaining now, whatever number that's at, just look at it and say, I love you. I love you, resistance. I really, really love you. I love you unconditionally. It's okay if you're there. It's okay if you disappear. You're not there. I love you either way. I just love you. I really, really love you. And notice how you feel now. Now, doesn't this feel easier, lighter, freer? Whether you give the thing up or not. You see, as long as you have resistance, that ego is pushing you around. And if you look for it, you'll see you got lots of resistance. Resistance to going free. Now take a look at that. When you think about going free, and whatever your ego tells you you're going to have to give up in order to go free, see if you're resisting freedom. Just check. And you might notice a contraction in your stomach or chest, kind of a clenching feeling. That's showing you that you're resisting. And just measure that as best as you can on a scale of 0 to 10. 10 being the most resistant, 0 being the least resistant. And wherever that is, can you say yes to it? And could you say yes to it even more? And even more. And even more. And could you say yes to it even more? And even more. And even more. And even more. And where are you now? Now, welcome up the rest of your resistance. Just allow it to arise. Just allow that resistance to come up now. Just open up. Open up a big imaginary door and imagine that resistance as energy moving right on out the door now. Just let that resistance evaporate and dissolve. And more. And more. And more. And even more. And even more. And how do you feel now? See, every decision that you make to just let go, you get freer, you get lighter, you get happier. And what's wrong with that? So, go for it. Take a look at everything that you're holding on to in the world. And notice it'll never satisfy you. And it keeps you resisting, keeps you holding on. And that does nothing but create suffering. So do the smart thing. Let go of all your resistance. Look for it and say yes to it and drop it. And watch what happens. And see if that opens up your eyes to the importance and the beauty of freedom. That is more important than anything else that exists in the world, that exists in your life. In fact, that is what your purpose is for. So keep letting that go and watch what happens to you. So if you're really interested in freedom, and why not, with everything that's going on in the world today, then join me this May for a 6-week immersion to waking up to your true purpose and being who you're meant to be.